Question number 15. The average number of air conditioners sold in Western Canada varies seasonally and depends on the month of year, and the formula is given as y equals 5.9 plus 2.4 sine of pi over 6 times t minus 3. So just a couple things to note here. We have our vertical shift here. We have our vertical, our in that case, that's our amplitude. We have our period. That's kind of represented by that. It should be 2 pi over 12. And then we have our horizontal shift of plus 3. Okay, so if we take a look at this graph here, the question, it tells us, first of all, it tells us y is in thousands. So I've drawn on here, we have 8,300 here. That's one of the parts that we're going to have to solve for. Along the x-axis, t equals 1 is January, t equals 2 is February, so I've marked the axes here. And it says here that in what month are sales of 8,300 air conditioners expected? Okay, so there's my 8,300 air conditioners. If I just look at my picture, I can see that's happening in June, on the 6th in June, and it's going to happen in June again of the next year. Okay, so how do we solve this then? So we're going to set this up for A. We're just going to make the y equal to 8.3 or 8,300 and make it equal to the equation. Then I can solve this algebraically. So when I solve this algebraically, I'm going to subtract 5.9 from both sides. So I get 2.4. Okay, again, divide both sides by 2.4, I get 1. And in this case now, I can solve for the sine. Okay, I'm going to undo the sine, so I get arc sine of 1 is equal to the angle 6 over pi t minus 3. Okay, I'm going to undo this. The arc sine of 1, when I think of where my 1 is going to end up on that circle, it's going to be at 90 degrees. It's going to be pi over 2. I cancel the pi's out. I'm going to multiply both sides by 6, so I end up with 3 is equal to t minus 3. Solving for t, I get t equals 6, and that represents June. Okay, so and I can see that when I look at my graph, that is consistent with what I see on my graph. And I've solved this algebraically for t. Okay, and we could also have repetitions because we know our period is equal to 12 months. So we know it's going to happen at 18 months, 30 months, etc. So that's part A. So part B asks, at what month are the sales expected to be the least? And when we take a look at the picture again, from the picture we can see that in January or in December here, those are going to be our low points for our sales, and which makes sense. And that's part C. Does this formula seem reasonable? Certainly does. Now for part B, we're going to solve this algebraically as well. Okay, so I'm going to set up my equation. I have to figure out what the least number of air conditioners is. And based on this equation, we know that the middle is 5.9 and I go down 2.4. So the lowest amount of air conditioners sold is going to be 3.5 air conditioners. And I can set up an equation and solve this. So I have 3.5 air conditioners is equal to 5.9 plus 2.4 sine pi over 6 t minus 3. And then solving this algebraically, again, I'm going to undo this by subtracting 5.9. So I get negative 2.4 equals 2.4 sine of pi over 6 t minus 3. Divide both sides by 2.4, I get negative 1. That's equal to sine To undo this sign, I need to use arc sine, so I can use arc sine, but since -1 is a special angle, okay, -1 is going to show up down here. That's going to be, we're going to end up with the angle 6 pi over 6 t minus 3 is equal to 3 pi over 2. Okay, so that's going to be where our -1 occurs. And then solving for this, we're going to get rid of the pi's again. I'm going to multiply by 6, divide by 2, so I get t minus 3 is equal to, in this case, it ends up being 9, and we get t is equal to 12 months. And again, we can see that's happening at 12 months. Okay, so there's our, at 12 months, we have a low. We know the period is 12, so we can go back to t equals 0 if we like. Okay, so we can get back to, since our t is equal to 12, we know that our solution for t is going to be 0, 12, 24, dot, 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 dot. So every December, we're going to have the lowest amount of sales.